Hello and welcome to another episode of the Student Loan Planner Podcast. It's Travis. For those listeners watching us on YouTube this week, you'll see my background and you'll think, oh my gosh, why does that look like a bunch of trash piled up on his bed? Well, I just want to be really fully transparent that my podcast studio flooded this past week because we got a flash flood from the tropical storm that hit our area, and it unloaded all kinds of stuff into our house. Real bummer. Luckily, the podcast studio is usable, but it's not beautiful right now, to say the least. So I thought I would distract myself by talking with you about something a lot more fun, which is dealing with student loans. So I wanted to talk today about specifically the ending of the SAVE Plan Forbearance. So the SAVE Plan Forbearance is, this thing that has been on for quite some time. Since June 2024. A lot of our listeners are on the SAVE Plan Forbearance. 7.7 million people total are on it. And the Department of Education came out with a press release basically last week that said that it is over. It is done as of August the 1st. So as of August 1st, you can expect interest is going to start accruing, and you can expect that they will tell you have to switch to a new repayment plan. Now, they're telling everyone to switch to the Income-Based Repayment plan. Why are they telling people this? It's because that is the only plan that will be available to folks once they fully implement the One Big Beautiful Bill Act starting July 2026. So what that act says is that anybody who's on a non-IBR plan as of that date is going to be transitioned over to the IBR plan by July 2028. So what's going to happen is anybody on pay, anybody on ICR is going to get moved forcibly into the IBR plan anyway. And so what they're encouraging borrowers to do is, well, just go ahead and sign up for IBR because you're going to get put on that anyway. And there's a couple things that you should know about your rights on this. So the pay plan is technically still open for enrollment. The court injunction just blocks people from receiving forgiveness under it, but you can still sign up for it, and those payments do count towards PSLF and forgiveness overall. So if you are a new borrower as of July 2014, if you took out your first loan after that date, you qualify for new IBR, and you should go ahead and just sign up for new IBR, which is just called IBR. It's just the difference is the terms based on when you borrowed. You can do that at studentaid.gov/IDR. So if you are a new borrower as of July 2014, new IBR is the way to go. If you are not a new borrower as of that date, then for now, the pay-as-you-earn plan is the way to go if you took out your first loan after October 2007 and before July 2014. So if you're in that in-between window, then you can get into the pay-as-you-earn plan, pay 10% of your income instead of 15% in the old IBR plan, at least for the next year plus. While you're building up credit, it'll be a lower payment than you would pay otherwise. That's a good thing. So go ahead and get on pay-as-you-earn in that case. Now, if you are a new borrower before October 2007, you only have one option for income-based options, and it's going to be the old IBR plan, which is 15% of your income. That is not a great option, but it could potentially be better than alternatives, right? And if you think about that, you're going to want to compare that plan option to the repayment assistance plan when it comes out. Now, the RAP plan is not going to be out probably until mid-2026 or early 2026. And that plan is 10% of your income. So you might say, oh, wow, I should do 10% of my income, instead of 15, but not so fast, because 10%, it's really 10% of your AGI minus the $50 per month per child you put on your tax return. Compare that to 15% of your discretionary income, and I've actually modeled some scenarios where the 15% of discretionary income is lower than 10% of your AGI because of the way the 150% of the poverty line deduction, they give you that credit first before they take 15%. So that's just something to think about when you're thinking about this analysis of, should I leave the IBR plan even if I'm on old IBR? The real question, or the real answer to that question is it really does depend. It really does depend on things like if you're PSLF or not PSLF, how far into the repayment you are, because the IBR is going to be 20 or 25 years till forgiveness instead of RAP, which is 30. So there's a lot of differences there. And so these are things that we're going to talk about in the coming months in a lot more detail. But for now, I just wanted to call out that SAVE Plan Forbearance ending so people could be prepared to make those payments again. When you apply, they're going to ask for your most recent return. So when they ask for your most recent return, if you filed an extension for 2024, then you'll be able to use your 2023 tax return, which hopefully gives you better income. Now, once you are certified and on that new payment plan, at that point, you could go ahead and file your 2024 returns at that point after everything, maybe you've seen your first payment come out, you would feel pretty confident you could go ahead and file at that point. So The married filing separate continues with the RAP plan. That is a continuation policy compared to how they did it with IBR plans. So this whole married filing joint, married filing separate, and all the mess that happens when you do married filing separate is still a thing. Again, as of the time of this recording, we still don't have spots available for new clients who want to join our tax group. Hopefully, I'll be able to have an update for that in the coming weeks. That'll be different news than that, but we're doing our best based off of the folks we find that we are feeling are fully qualified to provide that service, and we're trying to make sure we do an excellent job by just having a very strict capacity constraint on that. So thinking about taxes and student loans, it's never more important than it's ever been. I mean, it's really important now to think through your tax strategy on student loans, because if you're paying for longer, 30 years instead of 20 with RAP, then that's something that you're going to have to think through, right? That's something that is even more of a long period to be thinking about your AGI and minimizing it during, right? If you're stuck on IBR instead of pay because they eliminate pay, well, now it's losing 15% of income instead of 10. So things like avoiding unnecessary investment income realization, reducing AGI, reducing any kind of, or maximizing any kind of loopholes or deductions you qualify for, all those things are more important now than they were pre this new bill that passed, right? So those are all things that advice can help lower the costs by knowing those loopholes and strategies. So we're excited to be able to help you along that road, either for free with our content, or if you're a client of some capacity with paid help. I will say, with the sewer situation and flooding and all the problems we've dealt with here locally, it is a good reminder to say what really matters in life, what really is going to make a difference in your happiness at the end of the day. And it's really family, and it's really hugging your loved ones and keeping them close, right? And trying to protect as good as you can from bad things that can happen financially. I think that the more older I get, the more lessons I learn in terms of how to protect yourself from all kinds of financial peril. So I'm excited that we'll continue to share those stories at the Financially Free Fridays episodes from SLP Wealth. And make sure you subscribe to that podcast, follow that show, Financially Free Fridays on wherever you can find it there from SLP Wealth. You can probably just search SLP Wealth in your favorite podcast and find that show. And actually, I guess I should say it's the Financially Free Era podcast. I should say that. Financially Free Era. So look for that on your favorite podcast show platform if you want to check that show out. So in terms of what's coming next with student loans, we do have negotiated rulemaking happening with the Trump administration. They're still coming out with a lot of rules, a lot of executive actions, and things that will matter for borrowers who are on the pay plan or ICR or even PSLF. We're going to probably see some reversals of some Biden-era administration policies when it comes to PSLF, and how deep they go with reversing those policies is going to be important to follow for anybody on PSLF. I would not panic over PSLF because they had the opportunity to gut it in this bill, and they were not able to because of the Senate parliamentarian. So I would feel fairly confident that PSLF is still going to happen for you. Maybe the only exception would be if you work at some sort of like immigration-related nonprofit, legal aid clinic kind of place, but then that'll probably be battled over in the courts. So that wouldn't be the end of the story if they come up with a rule like that. I think that most folks can breathe easy knowing that their strategy, most people's strategy, pre One Big Beautiful Bill Act and post is not going to be all that different. The only differences are going to be, which plan should you be on, how aggressive should you be with pre-tax, contributions to things, and, what changes in your budget do you need to make sure you can afford any additional payments that you would be billed for? Or is there any other things we need to account for? For example, if your payment's going from 10% of income to 15%, and we know that's going to happen starting in July 2026, how can we plan for that in terms of the impact on your budget and your spending, and what things do you have available in your budget that could potentially give to afford that little higher payment, right? Now, some people are going to look at this and rightfully conclude, I don't want to be a part of this federal system anymore. I want to be done. I want to pay off my loans. I want to not think about this. I want to listen to true crime and not Travis's podcast anymore. It's a lot more enjoyable than listening to him just talk about student loans and RIF. I don't blame you at all. So if you really wanted to do that, what I would think through is get all your 0% interest. If you're on the SAVE Forbearance, let it end in August before doing anything. once interest does begin again, this administration will not do anything that the Biden administration did about, interest subsidy after interest subsidy after interest subsidy, right? It is done, in August and August 1, which is coming up very shortly. And if you know that you need to pay off your loans, one of the ways you can know this is your required IDR payment, 10% of your income, is that number greater than your interest that's accruing. So if you have $200,000 of loans, 6% interest, 12 grand a year in interest, about $1,000 a month, take 10% of your income. If your income's over, 120K, 10% of 120K or more is covering that $1,000 a month. So there's no interest subsidies in that case. Your interest would just be the stated interest rate on your loans. And most people's stated interest rates in the past few years are kind of crazy. Like some of them are 7, 8, even 9% for some Grad Plus loans. And current rates that I'm seeing people get are maybe in the 5s. So if you could cut your rate from 7, 8, or 9 to 5, that could save you a bunch of money if you're not getting any interest subsidies and you don't qualify for any interest subsidies, anyway. So I think that it would be wise to check out refinancing if that is a path that you want to go down because you're ready to be done, and that's the right call for you and your family. Just know it can't be undone. And so if you want to get some rates and you can check your credit without actually having any negative credit hit, and the only thing is you get a hard credit check if you actually go through with it, right, and apply fully. But you want to just see what your rate is. It's a soft credit check, and you can find out what your rates are at studentloanplanner.com/refi. So if you go to studentloanplanner.com/refi, you can check a couple different lenders and see what your rates could be. We're getting people that are pretty satisfied with their rates right now. One person even mentioned to one of our SLP wealth planners that that they found a rate and decided to pull the trigger on it that the interest savings would be more than several years worth of financial planning fees. And so it's kind of cool to hear that, right? Like, obviously, just the caveat is pre-COVID, interest rates were super low. We didn't really know what was happening in terms of what was going to happen in the economy and with student loans because it never had happened before. And people that refinanced right before COVID really regretted it because there was 3 years worth of 0% interest. Now, I'll say they regretted it in the moment, but I don't think I've heard from very many people that regret it now, because those people in a lot of cases have like a 3% 20-year fixed rate locked in. And yeah, they had, they missed out on 0% for 3 years, but they've got 3% locked in for 20 years that's fixed, right? So if we think about the virtual 0% almost 0% chance that the Trump administration restarts 0% interest for the rest of this 3 years that he's in office, then if you think about that, if you think about locking in a, maybe even a 4 or 5% kind of rate, if you can find that, then that might make sense for a lot of people. So that's some things to think about. I wanted to answer some listener questions today, but like I said, I am, just to be human and honest, I'm extremely tired from battling through all these flash flood related problems and damages to my home this past week. It's definitely no fun, and it's extra no fun when, the kids usually play in the downstairs and it's just an absolute disaster zone. So we can't let them in there, and we're kind of living in our top floor right now. So it's sort of like, it's very tiring, but you got to count your blessings. You got to look at the life half full with a glass half full instead of half empty, because the only difference in how you're experiencing something is your perception of it, and you can beat yourself up about something and it doesn't change anything, right? It's one of the things I've learned over time getting older. So we're looking at it glass half full, especially given all the tragedy that has happened across the country, especially in Texas. If you're a parent, you definitely hug your children tighter after that, mourning for those families. And just, at least all we're dealing with is just a bunch of property damage. It's not fun, but it's something that's easily recovered from long term, right? So we're feeling grateful and we're feeling blessed, and we're feeling ready to recover from this event, and able to help student loan borrowers, because that's a wonderful calling that I get to live out every day, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you so much for letting me show up into your earpods to talk student loans and talk shop and talk about what it all means. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act has got a ton of stuff in it. We are not going to get through even half of it probably in the next couple episodes. So we will continue to talk through all the implications of it in the coming weeks. Hope you're having a good summer. Hope you're watching something fun together with your significant other, if you have someone in your life like that. And I hope that you have some good trips planned. I hope you have some fun things planned for the rest of your summer, that you have a capstone sort of trip somewhere. You're going somewhere with your family, and hopefully we will be all ready for some calmer times in student loans. I wouldn't mind that, even though Some of these terms are not as good for borrowers. I think all of us are kind of like, just tell me the rules. Tell me what the rules of the road are so that I can actually make plans for my life, right? So, I mean, I'm hopeful that we'll at least have that from this bill. But I was writing an article about the RAP plan, and I was summarizing all the changes to student loans in the past years, and I wrote it out, and it was like, ICR, then old IBR, then pay, then new IBR, then repay, then save, then new and old IBR with no payment cap instead of a payment cap, and then the RAP plan. So we've had, in less than 10 years, we've had something like 7 or 8 different versions of IDR plans, and nothing but chaos in student loan land. So even though I hope for some calm, I think that probably what's going to happen is the next time some other political leader gets in office, they're going to try to change it all over again. So any advice we give is taking into account the risks of that and explains the risks of that and discusses like the pros and cons of doing certain actions, right? And I think that, even though there's uncertainty, I think we can still tell people stuff that saves them a lot of money. So if you need a plan, studentloanplanner.com/book. If you want to ask a question for the pod, studentloanplanner.com/voicemail. I promise I will get to the voicemail pipeline hopefully shortly in an episode upcoming. It's just been a little bit difficult with the personal stuff I've had to go through with the house flooding. So thank you so much for listening to the Student Loan Planner podcast. I hope you stay dry. I hope nothing stinky enters your life like sewer backup, LOL. And I hope that you have something fun planned the next week and that you do it. And thank you so much for listening to the SLP podcast. Have a great rest of your week. Are you on the free Student Loan Planner email list? If yes, you could upgrade your experience and discover student loan loopholes so good, they might get repealed if I talk about them publicly. Find out my very best thought leadership that I really just can't be super open about anymore, unfortunately. If you want to get our very best tips, not just the ones that I can share for free, then go to studentloanplanner.com/insider to get a special discount for your year membership. That's studentloanplanner.com/insider and get our very best dozens of bonus content and tips that's going to save you money and get you out of student debt faster. And if you're already an SLP insider, please reply back to those emails and let me know how I can make it even more valuable.